This is the Good Neighbor Podcast, the place where local businesses and neighbors come together. Here's your host, Sean Preston.
Welcome to another episode of the Good Neighbor Podcast. I am your co-host, Sean Preston. Today I am Ken from Barbie. Today is our Halloween edition for the podcast, and our lucky neighbor who got to come on with me in this getup, for those who are watching on video, is the lovely Barb Stuhlemmer of BLITZ Business Success. How are you, hon?
I'm doing really well, Ken. How are you today?
I'm feeling great. I get to see Barbie later at a networking event. So today we're just going to have some fun and have some good conversations with some of our local business community members.
Okay. Yeah, thanks.
So why don't we dive right into it? Why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about your business?
Oh, well, I work with Canadian small business owners to help them prepare their businesses to exit. And I started in business about 20 years ago. I've been in technical writing and medical device manufacturing for quite some time. And I decided one day I had to make a change because I'd been around small business my whole life, but I needed to actually do something significantly different than just show up at a job. In particular, I was driving down to Markham and, spending 3 hours a day in traffic, sometimes longer. And all of you who are in this area certainly knows about driving home on a Thursday or Friday night. And I had small kids at the time, and my husband was getting the kids up in the morning and putting them to bed at night. And I would come home and go, this is not how I want to live my life. So I decided to start a business back then and have then got into the challenges of small business, knowing that small business accounts for 97.8% of all businesses in the private sector and produce almost half of the jobs, so 46.8% of the jobs in the private sector, and also over a third of our Canadian GDP is created by small business. So I know how important small business is, and I get really excited about talking about it. So we're going to have fun talking about this because I love to make sure that small business does really well.
That's who Jeff and I talk to every single day, small business. So me and you're going to have a lot of fun having a good conversation today. So, all right, let's dive into what you do. Right. Helping businesses exit. So we have a coach. I've had a few coaches in my life, not just for sports, but in business. Thoroughly believe that everybody should have a coach to help them along their business journey. And so with that being said, a conversation that came my way from a business coach is, hey, have you thought about your exit? And I'm like, well, I just started. What do you mean? She's like, you should think about that before you even decide to start to go in a business. If you can't see the end, how are you going to get there? And then what are your goals for why are you coming into business? Are you coming into business because you want to hand it down to your kids? Like, other than just making, a nice life for yourself and working for yourself, doing something you're maybe passionate about. So maybe we can touch on some of that stuff.
Yeah, very cool. Yes, a lot of people come into business because they have a great idea. They have a skill set, they've created something, or they know of a gap that they can fill with a product or service that they have access to. And it's a great way to start a business, but a lot of small business, and I would say most small business owners, including myself, did not get into business to figure out how they were going to exit their business. They got into business to see how they could replace their current income or their current lifestyle or whatever that reasoning might be to start a small business. But yes, when you are in a small business, there are some really shocking statistics that are coming up that are going to happen within this decade anyhow. There was a research that was done it was in an article by the Financial Post, and the research said that 76% of all small and medium-sized business owners are thinking of exiting their business within the next decade. And when you start thinking about what those numbers look like, we're talking about in Canada affecting 4.3 million employees.
Wow.
And if those businesses don't know how to transition their business, and we can talk about what that sounds like in a minute, but if you just shut down your business, if every one of those 900,000 businesses that were going to go through that transition from one owner to the next, if they just shut down, you have 4.3 million people that are out of their jobs. And you have, with that, you have almost 440 million dollars of our GDP that just kind of goes away. So it really impactful. We think of, oh, it's only got like a couple people working for them, but there's so many of us, and we are doing so much for our community and we have to be able to ensure that our business owners know how to get ready so that they can actually exit their business later on and make a decision what their life's going to look like after their business.
100%. I mean, Jeff and I, outside of the podcast, we specialize in helping businesses brand. Branding is the foundation to business growth, and it's a really complicated topic. So we try to be students of the game and teaching people. But like you said, a lot of it is jumping in to change that lifestyle, to replace that income, to reduce stress, a combination of all of it, and then not thinking of those other things. Exit, super important. Marketing, super important. And to be honest, I think most people would agree that consumers would rather purchase their goods and services from a local business than they would from a box store. Yeah. There's a lot more meaning behind it, a lot more personal. The customer service is different in most cases. And so I'm completely agreeing with everything that you're saying. You seem extremely passionate about being out there and helping those local small businesses. And Jeff and I are exactly the same way there. So we're super aligned on that.
That's very cool. Yeah, there's a place for all businesses, and big business does give us a bigger reach and make it more possible for us as small businesses to do what we do in a larger, to get outside of our current markets, if that's what we're looking at. Because not all small business is a storefront or serves a certain small area because they are tied to that area because they're doing something physical there. Like you are a coach, a gym coach, then you have to be at a gym to be doing something like that. So those having that relationship with our different types of businesses are really important. So I don't poo-poo the larger businesses. I'm just saying that our small businesses have a huge impact on what we have to do, and they have a huge reach as well. We have access to a really great global supply chain and our shipping logistics, and we can be a small business and we can ship just about anywhere in the world. We can do business just about anywhere in the world, and we can do it over online. So it makes a huge difference in how we can scale and what we can do if we know what that is and what our end point for our business is going to be.
So what's that process and those tips and tricks that you're going to mention there about thinking about exit? If you haven't thought about it, what do people need to know about this stuff?
Well, let me back it up for a minute and just give you some examples of what I've experienced as far as my clients coming to me. When they come to me, oftentimes they're like, so I'm thinking of exiting my business, maybe sell my business about 6 months. And I'll go, okay. And then we'll go and we'll do the assessments for them. And we'll talk about what those are in a minute. And we could do the assessments. And then after the assessments, there's a couple things that usually happen. One is they decide that, oh, I actually don't want to leave my business. I just don't want to do all this stuff. And now I can see how that might actually be possible. And the second thing is that to be able to let go and let someone else manage their business and them just doing that one little piece, that transitional piece usually takes a couple of years, not 6 months. So, starting early is really important because you don't want to get to the end and go, okay, I'm ready to leave. And your options might be shut it down, sell off your inventory or sell off something as little as you can, or as much as you can for as little money that you didn't expect to get, and then walk away. And your clients might not be happy, your employees might not be happy, and you might not be happy because you're not getting what you needed to be able to live the life after the business.
It's such an important thing to think about. I mean, you mentioned there's a a component, like it sounded almost like kind of like a consultation, or like, what do you do when you get a business? What are a couple of things that you would kind of walk through with them to highlight some key areas and some things that they need to think about?
Yeah. So I have like 4 major steps. And so the first is to evaluate. And the evaluation is to evaluate the business owner themselves and what they do in the business, what their resources are, where their rules are, what things rely on them to do. If they don't do it, the business shuts down. So what are the key ones? What things do they do that can be done by other people easily? And what things are in the business that are already being done by other people? And then we do an evaluation of the people that work in their business, because we want to know. What I found with these evaluations is that when the employees of the business start talking about what they do in the business, you start recognizing the business owner doesn't always know every step or all the things that have to get done, which is really interesting. And and they'll point out things, and the business owner will go, "Oh, right, that's right, that has to be done." So the employees also knowing what's going on. I bring the employees in because it's really important that if you're going to make a change, any change in your life, that the people that you have to ensure come along with that change are, one, that they know about it, and two, that they're on board, and three, that they're excited and know that that change moving forward is just as good for them as it is for you. Because if they don't feel that way, there's going to be resistance. They're going to fight back. They're not going to do the things that you need to get done. And you're going to be fighting on the other side going, I used to have really good employees, and now I'm just fighting the whole way through. So you have to have them on board up front.
Yeah, certainly not a simple thing to do. Quite complicated. No. Lots that goes into it.
Yeah, so that first step has a lot of communication components that go into it. A lot of the evaluations are done as surveys, and then you pull up the survey information and deliver it back in a way that they can make a determination of how they're going to start stepping away from that. So then we want to examine the surveys, examine what they want to do, start making some ideas of how they're going to step away, what's going to change first, what's going to change next, and usually just assigning a first few steps so that we can move forward a bit, and then seeing what those next steps are. And of course, the big option, and oftentimes for small businesses, I don't want to tell people that I'm leaving my business. Like maybe they'll stop buying from me. Maybe my employees will leave. But what if you told them, hey, tomorrow I could be hit by a car. And if I'm not here, the business doesn't run and you lose your job. I want to make sure that my business works so that you have a job. And if something happens to me, the business keeps going. It's like, so you can deliver it in a way that you get people on board, and then you can start taking them through the process of what it is that has to change. The next step after that is the implementation. So I don't do as much of the implementation component for them, but I do set up an accountability component and teach them how to do meetings so they can do accountability inside, meetings that are 15 to 20 minutes long instead of 2 hours long, and have a way of keeping track of what people are doing. And then finally, we're looking at the training that comes along with that. So that's with the meeting training and whatnot.
Fantastic. Mm-hmm. So tell our listeners a little bit about your journey. Some people, they come out, they start their career, they lock onto something, and it seems like it's a little bit more rare in today's day and age, but they do that for their whole career, love it, and then they retire. And then other people, some stepping stones, or it's more crazier than that, like the Mazda commercial. It's a zoom, you're all over the place.
Right.
What's your journey been like?
Yeah, I had a pretty diverse background even before I got into business for myself. I started out in laboratory technology. Before I started my business, I stopped counting the amount of jobs I had at 23. And it wasn't because people kept firing me. I was actually very well liked in most of the jobs I was in. I really enjoyed a lot of jobs that gave me an opportunity to learn new things. and do new things. So if I was in a job, like when I was doing technical writing for one of the medical device companies I was in, initially I was doing one component, and then I got to a point where I must have had the best job, best boss ever, because honestly, they could see that I'm getting to a point where I've learned it all, and it was not engaging me anymore. So that they gave me more things to learn and more things to learn and more things to do and more responsibilities. And I love that, where I got to a place where I was running a laboratory. And I had people who worked for me. We set up the laboratory. We did all the assessments, and we sent out a variety of trucks because of the assessments that they had. So it was a really interesting and science-based background. So most of my background is in sciences, except for the art that I took. I don't know, a left, right brain person. I just had to have a variety going on in there.
Nice.
Yeah. And then when I got to the point where it's like, okay, I'm driving to Toronto every day, and I said that, I have to make a change. I cannot have a life with children and not be a part of that. So I looked into starting a business. I went through what was then in Barrie called the BERN, which is Business Enterprise Resource Network at the time, and they had part of what the government of Canada was delivering funding for, so I could start a small business. And it was fantastic training and whatnot. And I stepped into it and went, oh, this is exactly what I want, because I got to learn new things. But it wasn't until about 4 years in when I realized I don't want to be technical writing. I want to be managing. I want to be helping businesses do what they do. And I was constantly helping my clients, even though I was doing the technical writing, I was helping them on the business side of how they could what was going on. So I had to make a transition. I went back to school, got my MBA, did some research, and that was actually recently I got the MBA. But I've done a lot of training in the interim, and have been helping small businesses for a very long time. What I didn't tell you is that I've been in small business. Well, I've been around small business my entire life. So my great grandparents, my grandparents, my parents, our families, friends, relatives, just about everybody around us had a small business. I always worked in small business. I always knew the owners. And so I knew firsthand the rewards they got and the challenges. And I really really related to what that lifestyle was like, and wanted to see that more impactful for the people that were my friends at that time.
What a diverse background. That's such an interesting story. It's definitely a cool factor for Jeff and I, because we get to meet so many different people and hear their stories. That was really interesting background.
Cool. Thanks.
Very cool. Okay. Every industry has myths and misconceptions. We have it in the marketing world, and it's interesting but enlightening. Because it gives so much information, be able to clear the air on some stuff that people just don't know about. They're not overly familiar with that particular industry. So are there any myths, any misconceptions that you come across with in your world?
Well, one of them that I was thinking of, we already basically talked about, that kind of myth that you can build a business and just decide that you're going to sell it at the end, and expect it to actually have a price of value for you, not just for yourself, but for someone else. Someone else has to see value in the business to want to pay for it. One of the reasons I got into this was someone had approached me to buy their business. And at that time I was already doing what I do. And I had looked at their business, and they said, okay, so my accountant thinks it's worth this much. And they had done a multiplier to value the company. And it was about 2.5 times what she was making per year. And then, but she goes, but I don't think it's worth that. So I'm only asking this. And that number was about it was the one time what she made per year. And I went, oh, well, okay. So why don't I take a look at your business and just, I will do a small due diligence up front and give you some ideas of what I'm thinking. And so when I did that, and I'm not a certified valuer of businesses, so I'm not suggesting that I would do that for someone's business, but she was asking me to buy her business. So I started with that. And I looked at her business and a bunch of things, and I realized she didn't even own the brand for her number one product that she sold. And her business was her personal name. So I couldn't buy her personal name and I couldn't buy her brand. So, and of course, Sean, you would get this completely. I mean, you can't, what do you got to sell if you don't have the name of your product or the name of your company? And so when I did that, I said to her, I said, I would say that your business is only worth about an eighth of what you think it's worth. And I would only give you upwards of about a fifth of what you're asking. So I'm not even going to offer it to you because I'm saying, this is not worth it for you. If you want to sell your business, you're going to have to go back, rebrand your product and your company under your product name because that's what you're selling. And a year and a half later, she had that rebrand. She did sell it to someone else. I was not in the market at that time. So she sold it to someone else. And that company's been around for about 10 years now. So she did a really good job of making that possible for someone else to take it over and I want to take it over and buy it.
There is power in personal brand, but if the business name matches that personal brand, not so much. So totally agree with what you're saying on that front, for sure.
Well, you can't sell yourself. So if you are the product, you don't have anything to sell then.
Yeah, not something that's really thought about, when you first come in, but knowledge is power. And if for those who are ever thinking about getting into business, that'd be the first thing on my mind is really putting forth. Jeff and I are in the middle of a rebrand right now.
Yay.
And trying to come up with, something that resonates with people, something that people can gravitate, that they like. But, the podcast definitely wouldn't suffice. It's just our name, right?
Yeah, well, and it's your marketing tool, so it's not your business per se. So yeah.
Wonderful. So let's talk a little bit about the word fun, because I clearly, by what I'm wearing, I like to have fun, and there's different levels of fun, of course, and everyone's got their hobbies. But finding that balance originally was a word I was using. That balance with your work-life balance. A lot of people use that word. I've changed that word to harmony because it's not really equal, especially as business owners are pretty passionate about what we do. So it's easier to get into work mode and work a lot more than you do play. But at the same time, finding a harmony, let's say, a little bit easier to swallow and understand that. So what would your harmony be if you're not working on your business, in your business? What does Barb like to do for fun?
Yeah, it's back to your work-life balance. I like to use the word boundaries for that, and it's not specifically around fun, but recognizing your boundaries in your business and your life is similar to the idea of harmony. So I love to spend time with friends. I like going out for dinner with friends and family or having family over. I love to travel. My husband and I do a little bit of traveling, or oftentimes just in Canada, but we've been to a few different really lovely spots around the world. And I'm a reader, so I enjoy reading. I read a lot of nonfiction, I should say. I read a lot of nonfiction and research. So the Harvard Business Review is shows up in my box almost every day. So there's always something worth reading in there. And we're learning Italian. My husband and I are learning Italian together because we traveled there. We really like the people. We really love the culture, and we'd love to be able to go back and actually be able to share a little bit more. And it won't be me. I am terrible at learning languages. I can read them, I can understand them, but I cannot speak them well. And my husband, he doesn't care if he can't speak it. He'll go right through, and people are killing themselves laughing. He's great at building rapport and relationships with people very quickly because of that. And so it makes traveling with someone much easier because we get to enjoy it that way.
That's phenomenal. I've been to Rome.
Yes.
Once before, and just recently got engaged. So my fiance Julie and I are just sat down with the travel agent earlier this week to kind of start mapping out and outlining where we want to go, what do we want to do. And so might be Malta at the start, and then getting into Rome, then over to Sicily, and then we're going to do a little stint up in France. and check out all the museums and all the World War II stuff. But Italy's phenomenal.
Yeah, yeah. Malta and Sicily are both two places that well, Sicily technically is part of Italy, but yes, they're on my bucket list as well.
It's had a great time. One of the coolest experiences that I had when I first went, two actually. One was the Uber scooters, because once you get the app, there's like 4 different kinds. So I had to get all the apps, but it's just super convenient. You can just grab a scooter, put your phone in there, and they have a holder, and then you just GPS where you want to go, and you're riding with the cars, and like everybody's a phenomenal driver. So I first got on there and I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to die. But you're like, wow, everybody's really like sharing the space. And then you realize this is a thing. So now you're comfortable. I got to see all the 5 main attractions in Rome, right? Like the Trevi Fountain, the steps, Pantheon, as well as the Colosseum, et cetera, like 5 times. Because I would just bounce around, and then you could just ditch it and then go for a lunch. And the first 2 days we were at a conference there, and the food actually was terrible. I was super disappointed considering, we're there. And my best meal was the last meal I had. We forgot that they eat at they finish eating at 7. So you can't go after 7 to grab something to eat. We're right on that cusp. It was like 6:45, and we walked into this hole in the wall. They had like nickel plated tables in there. Wow. And I saw the Nona in the back. She's all curled over. She had to be late 80s, maybe early 90s. And I looked over at the guys I was with, and I was like, yo, guys, look at the Nona right there. This is the spot. I'm guaranteeing you this is the spot. And we ordered pasta and pizza, best pasta pizza I've ever had in my life. And we got pictures with the Nona after. I'll give her a hug. She absolutely loved it. It's just a great experience overall. So.
Yeah, no kidding. It's so wonderful to have that. Going to Europe, we went in 2022. So I'd always wanted to go to Europe. I've been to a variety of different places, but I've never been to Europe, anywhere in Europe. And my family actually comes from the UK. So I'd never even been to the UK to connect with any of my family that might be still there. And I just remember we flew in. The flight to Italy was my first one to Europe. So the flight to Italy was long. I think we were about 9 hours in total, and it was overnight. And you don't sleep really well on an airplane. I could probably sleep, but the people around me weren't sleeping. So like you're getting elbowed and people are moving and whatnot. And we show up, and of course our hotel, we're early because the time difference is a little weird, and it's 7 hours difference, and it was early, so our room wasn't ready. So we were sitting by the pool. And then when it was ready, they came and got us, and they took us up to our room, and she showed us around the room. And there's some things that are a little bit different. The keys were different, and what's a bidet and stuff like that. We knew before we got there, but still, they're showing you all this stuff. And then she takes the curtains, and she goes, "This is why you're here." And she opened up the windows, and I'm like, "Oh yes, this is why I'm here." I was so tired and overwhelmed, but we were in Positano, and you're looking out across that beautiful pastel colored homes and out to the ocean blue and the blue skies, and I was like, "Oh my God!" So that was my one. Just everything was just an awe moment. Went from there on out. It was wonderful.
Very cool experience. Yeah, been a lot more into travel, especially as I age, and really wanted to try to see the world, give you a little bit more perspective and appreciation for all things, right? For all of those things where you're going to go travel, how people live, the different cultures, and also appreciation for where we live as well too. If you don't get out there and you don't see it, I've had the pleasure of being in every major city in Canada. When I was in my early 20s, I was a traveling salesman, lived out of a suitcase. So I had the chance to check out what our country has to offer. It's absolutely phenomenal. And then a bunch of places in the US just through my travels. And then now I don't get to travel as much as we stick to being local here. But when we do get to take some time off, certainly have different spots around the world I'd like to go visit and just kind of soak up that experience. So in life, we pick our path, right? We walk that path. That's the path of life. And then life sometimes decides it wants to get in the way. And sometimes those are just challenges, simple, complex, hurdles. We have to overcome these challenges. People experience hardships. Sometimes those are in forms of tragedies. Sometimes people experience those a little bit less than others. And I've always been fascinated at human beings and their ability to be able to overcome these things. Mindset, big thing to do with it. Seeing the glass half full, pulling silver linings from things, because we have to move forward. That's life. Time moves us forward. So I wanted to ask you if you've ever experienced a hardship, a life challenge, maybe you overcame, maybe made you better, maybe made you stronger, maybe you took some silver linings from it.
Yeah. Well, I first I have to say that I've had a very blessed life. So I'm actually quite grateful that that I haven't had a lot of the huge challenges that a lot of people in this world have experienced. I mean, just living in Canada has made that much easier than I would say there's a lot of countries that just do not have what we have in our world. So I can't complain because I've had so many amazing things happen for me in my life. Of course, I've had things happen, and recognizing I had a very sick child that I was concerned about. We spent quite a bit of time in a hospital, and then 10 months driving back and forth to a cardiologist down in Toronto because there's only 2 pediatric cardiologists in all of Ontario or something to that effect. I was diagnosed with MS, and what did that mean for my life? How is that going to look? And that was 22 years ago. So I've had a lot of things happen. Cars breaking down, maybe not as big as those kind of challenges, but when you're out in the middle of nowhere and you're a single woman and you are 20 something years old, it can be really challenging and scary. But what I found was that I'm a real positive planner. So I'm a strategist. So I don't call myself a coach. I call myself a strategist because I spend a lot of time creating strategy for businesses, but I do that for my life as well. I create strategies on just about everything that I want and what I want to do, and then I make it happen. So when I decided I wanted to go to school and I wanted to work for a thing and I wanted to be married to a certain type of person, I created the list of what I wanted and I made each of those things happen, including finding the house that I'm in. And I have an office in this house, so I work from this office. I found this, I had drawn an architectural drawing of the house that I wanted about 3 years before I found this house.
Nice.
Yeah, I know. And like, if I looked at the drawing, it's almost exactly what I had drawn, exactly what I wanted in the house. And so, not that I believe that, you can just wish it and it happens. I put a lot of work and insight. I'm looking for things because I know what it is. And to step it back to the challenges that I had, I knew what had to happen, what had to go in place. I was already well educated, like, because I spent time in medical device manufacturing, and we were actually working on monitors and heart ablation tools. So I had a lot of medical background to go along with the technical writing that I had to do to write for the doctors and biomeds that use the equipment. When my son got sick, there were things that I knew that I could use to help myself gauge how I could help him. And then when I found out about my MS, I was like, oh, well, I'd already planned on having a bungalow. And here I was in a bungalow. I wanted a bungalow because I was thinking, if I found the house that I loved, and I told you I found it, I'd drawn it 3 years before I found it. I'd moved into it, but I did it because I thought, if I found the one I love, I'm just going to stay in it for the rest of my life. So I probably shouldn't have something with a lot of stairs in it, just in case, when you get older. And then a few years after we moved in here, 2 years after we moved in, I end up with MS. I'm going, well, it's a good thing I had a house without stairs.
Right.
Because, if something happens, I'm not going to be able to do stairs. And obviously that I've been very, very fortunate that I don't have something with a lot of challenges, thankfully, because, you don't go to Italy if you can't do stairs. And we've been very grateful because of that. But positive planner, I think, is what has put me in the mindset that gives me what I need.
And people wonder why they live so long. Right. And a lot of stairs. It's it's a skill set that you have, that critical thinking skill set, the ability to see into the future, to be able to plan ahead. It really avoids a lot of obstacles, a lot of barriers that, a human being can run into that can create complications. Not to say that they would end up in a tragic, scenario, but just making life a little bit easier to kind of navigate. And like the stair example, perfect.
Yeah, I don't get to avoid the things, but when they come up, I can better manage them. Sometimes you don't get to avoid, I should say. Sometimes you can avoid, but sometimes you don't get to avoid. So you have to have a better mindset of how you can manage it. Yeah.
What would be one thing that you wish our listeners knew about your business?
I don't. I think, I've already shared quite a bit about, why I do what I do. I mean, my background, my family and whatnot. And, I've been a part of this city for 30 plus years now, 33 years. I moved here from London, Ontario. My sister and brother still live in London, Ontario, and and it's a lovely city, but they're like, so how are we going to get her to move back home? My sister-in-law was telling me that they were trying to figure out how to get us to move back home. And I'm going, well, I don't know that I could. I mean, I'm such a huge part of this community. I belong to the business community. I am connected to the people who work here. I buy from the people I buy from are like friends. They know me when I walk in the door, and I appreciate that. I have a lot of friends here. I've been teaching at the college for 12 years. I've been on a lot of boards at the city, at the college itself, and many other of the businesses in this area. I love the fact that I can see the lake, and I usually make an effort to be down at the lake at least 3 times a week, because I live only a couple of kilometers away, and I don't want to be at another place. So I love being here. I love being around small business. I love being a component of how this community survives and thrives. And when you find a place where you fit, this is what you do.
I would 100% agree with you on that. I've been saying it, not just on the show since we started doing this. I've been saying this for a long time, that we have a really special community. The people are different quality of people. They're all really helpful. They care about each other here. And it's a culture. And, people that come in that don't want to adopt to that culture, it doesn't seem like they last for very long, which is nice, because I think everybody who lives here guards that, because they understand that. Yeah. I had a conversation with somebody who was from Toronto, came up here, and he had a business, an automotive repair shop he just started. So we were just talking about his business and talking about Barrie and what he thinks of, the difference. I always like to ask, right? Because it's so hustle and bustle down there, and it's different culture, different everything. And he's like, yeah, he goes, it's going to change up here. It'll be just like Toronto. And I'm like, you have no idea. I highly doubt that, because everybody understands just how special that is. And how cool is it when you're in B2B to be able to work with so many of our lovely business community members here. You get to know so many different people. And you get to know them on a personal level as well. Anytime you need anything, you already kind of know. And if you don't know, you probably know somebody who does. So makes shopping for things and buying products and services and getting things that you need to accomplish in whether it's your business life or personal life, just that much easier, right? So everyone's so willing to help.
It's interesting. So you mentioned like people coming up from Toronto, and a lot of people that I know that come up from Toronto are like, this is the place I want to live. And like you were saying, they transitioned. So I had a friend who moved up here. She started a business, and then she started a second business down in Innisfil. She had one here in Barrie, and then something happened, and she had to move back to the Toronto area, ailing parents. And she's like, I can't wait until I can figure out how to get back to Barrie. The lifestyle, the people, the shopping, there's still a lot of crazy going on with the 400 and the travel and whatnot. But the city itself is just, it's an incredible jewel, and we really need to ensure that we manage and look after what we have.
Well, I'm definitely sure that there's going to be some people that are interested, especially if you're a business owner and saying, oh, I never thought about that. I might want to start asking some questions. And so for those who are, or somebody who knows somebody and wants to reach out, what would be one of the best ways that they can go ahead and do that, Barb?
Well, you can just send me an email, barb@blitzbusinesssuccess.com. Or you can look me up on my website. If you see my name here and if you know how to spell it, I am the only Barb Stuhlemmer in the world. So you can reach out on social media and connect with me that way. And if you do and you're interested, I have like a free session. You can sit and talk to me and tell me what's going on, and we can talk about what you need to do. And I'm happy to listen.
Amazing. Well, that was a very entertaining conversation. Thoroughly enjoyed that. I think you're absolutely lovely. It was really nice chatting with you.
It was really great chatting with you too. Sean.
Love it. Hopefully we can maybe do this down the line. Thanks a lot.
All right. Take care.
Thank you for listening to the Good Neighbor Podcast Midhurst. To nominate your favorite local businesses to be featured on the show, go to gnpmidhurst.com. That's gnpmidhurst.com or call 705-413-3775.